Aloha, and welcome to a special segment of Better Government. Better Government, that's what you're entitled to. Hey, look, I'm State Senator Sam Slom, and I'm glad to be with you. And for the next half hour, we're going to have, I hope, an interesting and I know an informative program and a very special guest to join us. But better government, hey, you know, we talk about that all the time, but you're the ones that pay for your government. You pay for all of us in elective office. You pay for all the agencies and all the departments and all the things that are supposed to get done. So remember, you're the master, we're the servant. You want better government? Speak up. Help a candidate run for office yourself, but be involved. It's a lot easier now to be involved because of the internet, because of Olelo, because of the programming. You can send in testimony, you can come down to hearings, you can ask any of us who you pay for, any of us in elective office to help you out. We have a great legislative access room here at the Capitol as well. So the next session will start in January, but here's a hint. You want better government? This is the time to talk to your legislator, your state representative, your state senator. Talk to them about things that are of interest to you and get commitments from them for a better government. Well, we got a special program today, and one of the big issues of a year or so ago, actually 2 years, was reapportionment. And reapportionment is a process that takes place every 10 years across the country. The original purpose in the Constitution was to enumerate the people, count the people, those that were eligible to vote, so that we could reapportion or change district lines as necessary so that everybody would be represented. Well, we have a unique situation in Hawaii. You know, we're unique with our education system, with our tax system, with everything else. Well, we're unique with reapportionment too. So we're going to talk with someone who was on the front lines of the entire reapportionment process right up until the time that there was a federal district court decision last month about this very issue, but it's not over yet. So it's important for you to understand the issue, because I'm betting you didn't get all of the right information from the monopoly newspaper or media. So my guest today is someone that many of you know. You probably know him in a different form, in a different venue. He's Michael Palcic. Used to be Big Mike. Now he's Tall Mike, and we'll tell you why. But he was a successful businessman, artist. What else did you do in your life? And you're a good grill master, too. I know that.
Yeah, I love the kitchen. That's one of my favorite rooms. Yeah. Well, hi, Sam, and it's great to be here with you again. It's a beautiful day in Hawaii.
It is a beautiful day, isn't it?
And hello, aloha to all your viewers.
Yeah.
Yeah, reapportionment is a very serious thing, but where I was coming from was a person who's been involved in politics from time to time. I've been a Republican all my life and interested in Republican causes.
Is that an apology? Are you making a declaration?
No, I believe in the free market, and I believe in freedom, and I believe in personal liberty, and those are the characteristics that made our country great.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, in the interest of transparency, back in 2010, I had the opportunity to appoint members to the Reapportionment Commission and also to the Oahu Advisory Apportionment Council. And Mike Palcic was appointed to that and became chair of the council. And you worked your butt off.
Yeah, I took the job seriously. It's the first
a lot of people didn't, did they?
A lot of people, when they're appointed to these advisory boards, just sit there like bumps on a log and vote aye with the majority. But I really took it to heart and studied the issue of reapportionment and how it should be done. And I think we gave good advice to the Reapportionment Commission on how it should be done. We initially passed a resolution in our advisory council that all of the citizens of Hawaii, all of the residents of Hawaii as counted by the United States Census, should be included in the apportionment for Hawaii's legislature.
But isn't that a no-brainer? I mean, isn't that done in all of the states, including Hawaii?
It was done in all the states except for Hawaii, because although the Reapportionment Commission voted 8-1 to agree with us and to count everybody in secret with their little committee that called the Technical Committee.
This was a committee within the
Reapportionment Commission.
Okay.
And they extracted 108,000 United States citizens and residents of Hawaii, according to the census, from our apportionment. This had the effect of changing not only our district boundaries, but of moving a Senate seat from the island of Oahu to the island of Hawaii.
Well, I know it was very contentious. I, of course, attended the hearings and the meetings. although a lot of the meetings, it was just like the UH Board of Regents. They would meet for 15 minutes and then go into an executive session. Were all those executive sessions behind closed doors really necessary, in your opinion?
It's really hard to say because we have no idea what business was conducted there. All that we do know is that the reapportionment plan, which finally came out of the Reapportionment Commission, had this exclusion, had this extraction of 108,000 people. But the interesting thing about it is because 108,000 people were counted as living in Hawaii, they cannot be counted as living anywhere else. So that means 108,000 United States citizens are deprived of being apportioned to any legislature anywhere in the country.
Okay, well, we're all aware that on April 1st of the given census year, that's the day when the census takers count how many people are here being in all 50 states and everything else. But you're saying that Hawaii does it differently. And are you using a euphemism when you say these people are extracted? I mean, I've had teeth extracted and all that. What does that really
about
mean?
Like that. But extraction is the term that the Reapportionment Commission uses, so that's the term I use. But when people are counted as living in Hawaii, they not only count people who have lived there their whole lives, but people who have just moved here because they intend to live here on a permanent basis. They count resident aliens. They count temporary construction workers, people that are here hired for temporary jobs but are living in Hawaii at the time. Anybody who was living in Hawaii, who slept in Hawaii, who worked in Hawaii on April 1st of 2010 was counted as a resident of Hawaii for the purposes of apportionment.
Okay, that's important because a lot of people, when they were arguing against this or for the extraction process, and let's face it, we're talking about this 100,000 plus, we're talking primarily military, right?
A considerable portion of them are military.
Okay.
And
so the issue was, as supported by the proponents that wanted the extraction, these people don't deserve to vote because they're not permanent residents, and in fact, we have a provision in our state constitution that talks about permanent residents. So can you address the thing about voting, first of all, and then secondly about permanent resident?
Well, the issue of apportionment does not involve voting, because if they're going to count resident aliens who cannot vote, if they're going to count minors who cannot vote, it's not about voting. It's about who lives in Hawaii and how many there are.
On that day, right?
On that day.
On April 1st, okay.
That's right. Now, the Census Bureau has a long document. It's like 12 pages long, considering all sorts of different living situations to determine whether someone is counted as living in a particular place. The Hawaii State Constitution has two words, permanent resident, but yet that term is not defined. The term usual resident that the United States Census Bureau uses is well defined in a big document.
Are there other states that have had the same kind of problem that we have? Or?
In the past, there have been states that did extractions, Texas and Alaska, for example, but they got rid of that quite some time ago and now count everybody according to the census counts.
Somebody told me about Kansas. How does Kansas fit into this?
Kansas had extraction, but it was pretty much on a voluntary basis, and it involved a very, very few number of people. The 108,000 that are extracted in Hawaii constitute about 8% of our population.
Okay, so you're not talking about necessarily those 108,000 voting, because obviously a lot of them probably are not tax-paying residents here. In fact, maybe resident somewhere else, but they have to be counted somewhere on that day in every state, right?
That is correct.
So what you're really talking about is the representation of all of these people. So if they're extracted, if 108,000 people are extracted, where are they represented?
They're not.
At all?
They're not at all.
In any state? Okay.
Not for the purposes of the state legislatures. The congressional districts were drawn on the basis of the entire census count. The Honolulu City Council did not extract anybody. They counted the entire population.
So only the state legislature?
That's correct, the state of Hawaii.
And there's no other state that does that?
None.
So you were saying earlier, and by the way, why don't you also describe the difference between the advisory council? You're the head of the Oahu. I understand there were other neighbor island councils.
There are total. And
the Reapportionment Commission. How do you fit into all
There
that?
are a total of 4 advisory councils for each island group. I chaired the one on Oahu. The advisory councils are to go out into the community and seek community input. So I attended a considerable number of neighborhood board meetings and other community meetings and discussed with community leaders. it's interesting because the people that wanted to have input to the reapportionment process had the most effect upon the reapportionment. The area of Aiea, Newtown, for example, was being sliced up. And the residents there objected to having their community broken up into several districts when it should have been just one district. And they showed up in force and testified before the commission, and by golly, the commission changed. It had an impact.
So, okay, now wait. This is what we're saying. If you don't participate, you can be sure the changes are going to be made or not made, and you may or may not like them. But if you do get involved, if you make that effort, make that time, it doesn't mean coming to meetings every day, but it does mean when there's an important meeting and when your input is sought, you got to be on the record, right? And you can make a difference.
People, when you show up, you make a difference.
Okay, fair enough. All right. So what happened?
What happened? In the end, the original reapportionment plan was thrown out by the court, and the Reapportionment Commission had to redraw the lines, and they did it on the basis of the extraction. And
that changed particularly Oahu versus the island of Hawaii?
That's right. Oahu had one less Senate district. But while they were redrawing the lines, they also did considerable amount of gerrymandering and have ignored some general principles in the law. According to the law, districts are to be drawn according to major geographic boundaries or socioeconomic boundaries to keep like groups together.
So if you had a body of water or you had a mountain range or something like that?
An example of this is, for example, in the community of Hawaii Kai. It was sliced in half, and half of Hawaii Kai was thrown in with Waimanalo, which is entirely different geographically and socioeconomically. It's a different group of people, so it's divided up two communities unnecessarily. Makapu is a natural dividing point, and you can start building districts from Makapu up the Windward Coast and from Makapu toward town. And that makes sense at the Kaena Point end of the island as well. By doing that, you have nice compact districts and maintain those socioeconomic and natural geographic boundaries.
And more community interest.
That's right. You keep communities together.
Well, you were talking earlier, though, about a vote, an 8-to-1 vote. What was that all about?
Early on, the Oahu Advisory Council, which I chaired, advised the Commission to adopt a policy of counting everyone according to the United States Census. And the Reapportionment Commission agreed to do this. They voted 8-to-1 and said, we will obey this census count. From that moment forward, Sam, in secret, they started extracting people and deciding that these groups will not belong, these groups will not belong. And in the end, they decided that some students that are here temporarily and some military people that are assigned here temporarily would not count. But by doing that, they have diminished the citizenship of those people. Those people are not counted to the legislature anywhere.
So let's make sure everybody understands. So in other states, we're not unique. I mean, we have non-resident military and students in other states, right? So, but you're saying that they're counted because there's a total count of everybody that's present on that April 1st.
That's correct.
Only Hawaii.
And what's more is that the state of Hawaii does not really define what it means to be a permanent resident. All they're saying is that we found a couple of groups that are not, but they don't say who is.
But there was no unanimous agreement as to, for example, what a permanent resident is?
It remains an undefined term. All they're saying is that two groups of people that they did identify are not permanent residents.
Now, there was an attempt during this most recent legislative session, 2013, to redefine or to define that, but that didn't get anywhere, did it?
That's another interesting piece of work because our legislature passed nearly unanimously, 75 votes to 1, to change the law and have Hawaii's permanent resident terminology be the same as the United States Census. Our legislature voted that, but there were slightly different wordings in the House and Senate bills, and so it goes to a conference committee where it was conveniently, shall we say, put to rest. The bill was killed.
Extracted. Yeah. So no changes have been made. We still don't have a definition in our Constitution, and Hawaii remains the only state that does these major extractions.
That's true.
Okay. But so what happened? So they voted 8-to-1. They adopted the original program. Then you say there were secret meetings. You're intimating that there was a lot of political or other influence. And then what happened after that? What changed it?
The thing is, we do not get to see how these lines are drawn. We do not get to hear any of the discussion.
But you're on the advisory council.
That's true.
Yeah.
What happens is, after they come out of their little dark room, they announce what the plan is. But we don't get to see how the plan is crafted. At our advisory council, we created a plan, and we talked about it. We talked about where district lines should be drawn.
Did the public have an opportunity to?
Our meetings were entirely open. We never had an executive session of the advisory council.
But that's the advisory council. But
Yes.
the commission itself, which ultimately made the decision, after they came out with a new plan, was the public able to give testimony and to get involved?
Yes.
They were.
The people could
Okay.
do. And the people of, I congratulate Newtown IAEA, because the folks that showed up made a big difference in the boundaries that were drawn for their community.
Okay. All right. So what was the next step? So here you had adopted a program 8-1. Basically, it didn't change, didn't extract this 108,000 people. Secret meetings. Then what happens?
Well, the plan was adopted. They finally ended up with a plan,
Okay.
and the districts were redrawn, and we had an election. And
But this plan was totally different from the one that they had first approved 8-1.
That's correct.
Is that right?
They
Okay.
changed
And
the
what was the
plan.
vote, by the way, on the final plan?
You know, I don't know.
Was it unanimous or not?
I believe it was not unanimous, but
Okay.
it was overwhelmingly adopted by the commission. The commissioners became convinced that this extraction was an okay thing to do.
All right.
So, without actually formally overturning their earlier vote, they adopted a plan that went against their earlier vote, but without formally rejecting the idea that they should count everyone.
And so I guess the impact of that was to change lines. Did they make changes in some of the House district as well as the Senate district lines?
Yeah, it affected all the districts, because if you had an area with a large military concentration, the district lines would obviously be changed, because those people are no longer counted.
That'd be areas like what? Kailua,
Fort Shafter,
Lanikai, Fort Shafter.
Fort Shafter,
Yeah. Okay.
Mokapu.
And so the bottom line impact was that Oahu, there's 25 state senators. Oahu lost a state Senate seat, and the island of Hawaii picked up a state Senate seat.
That's correct.
But people argue, well, wait a minute, Mike. Over the last 10 years, wasn't really the real growth, say, on the island of Hawaii, on the island of Maui, certainly not on Oahu. Isn't that true?
There was growth. There was big growth on the Big Island, no question about
So
it.
why shouldn't they get another Senate seat?
Because there was enough growth on the island of Oahu to keep things as they were.
If you counted the
If you count
I got it.
everything.
Okay. All right. So,
One of the odd things that happens is as a result of this, some of the districts have a lot larger populations than others. If there's a large military concentration, those people weren't counted in the census, but they are in that particular legislator's district. So if you represent a district with a military base in it, for example, you're going to have a lot more constituents calling you on matters. You're going to have a lot more.
what do you do? Hang up the phone and say, "You've been extracted. We don't take this call." You do that?
I don't know many legislators.
Right?
That's true.
Yeah.
So there is that. But in the meantime, there is a court proceeding, because the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution provides that people be treated equally under the law. And here are people being extracted, being deprived of a portion of their citizenship by not being apportioned to a legislature. And so they are not being treated equally under the law. And the district court here did not see it that way, but it will be appealed to the United States Supreme Court, and I think that is probably the jurisdiction that should act on this.
So it's not a state judicial matter; it is a federal judicial matter. And the court rendering last month, July, was the federal district court.
That's right.
In Hawaii. I understand that was only it was a 3-member panel, which is not uncommon, but it was not the full court that ruled on that. So you're expecting this to go to the U.S. Supreme Court?
I would think so. Yeah.
Were there any other lawsuits that were involved?
You know, the legal end of it, I really didn't. I wasn't as up to date on. I really concentrated on the actual reapportionment process itself and trying to construct adequate, fair, representative districts.
Why do you think there was not an outcry or demonstrations or people going to the media about this, making a big deal about it? Because obviously it is a big deal.
It is, but people are generally not as aware of it as they are of many other issues. if you have an animal cruelty bill before the legislature, people will turn out in
It's
droves.
packed. We know that. Yeah.
But reapportionment is a kind of an esoteric. It's a
People's eyes glaze over.
That's right.
Not today. Your eyes are fine today, but yeah.
So it's an issue that doesn't draw a lot of people's attention, but it certainly draws the attention of politicians whose district lines are being drawn, because they would like to have communities that support them.
Isn't part of it also because so many of the extractees were military, and the military are not supposed to get involved in political activities?
Well, as citizens of the United States, they do have voting rights.
Well, of course they do.
But many of military people exercise their voting.
Yeah, but we're not talking about voting here, right?
That's true.
We're talking about representation.
But nevertheless, they are citizens of the country, and to deprive people who are putting their lives on the line to defend the nation of apportionment to a legislative body seems to me to be a grotesque injustice.
And here again, just to remind everybody, we're not talking about giving these people the right to vote. It's just giving them the right to representation, or being in an area where they can identify who their
if they live here,
representative is.
Anyone who lives here can choose to register to vote in Hawaii.
Yeah.
But people who are considering going back home to, say, for Nebraska, for example, may maintain their voting registration in Nebraska, and they may pay income taxes in Nebraska. But they live here, shop here,
pay taxes.
Pay taxes. You cannot avoid the general excise tax, which is the biggest tax engine in this state.
Yeah.
So they are part of our community. The military makes a significant contribution to Hawaii. They volunteer regularly for community activities, and they participate in. You see them out in droves in fun runs and the Great Aloha Run.
So this appeal, I mean, here we have the federal district court upholding the lower court's position and the Reapportionment Commission, and saying basically the state has the right to discriminate. Basically, it has the right to ignore these people. Now, it goes to the Supreme Court, and you already said, this is not your area of expertise, legal area and all that. But even suppose it goes to the U.S. Supreme Court, and the Supremes say, Hawaii, sorry, you can't do that. No other state does it. It is a violation of the 14th Amendment and maybe other rights as well. What impact would that have? Would it have anything to do with the current status or not?
Well, first of all, the Reapportionment Commission is not dissolved until this thing is finally laid to rest.
Okay.
So as long as there's legal action pending, the commission technically still exists.
And the advisory councils?
And our advisory councils all still
By the way,
exist.
You guys and gals are getting big bucks, right, for this?
Oh yeah, we got a fabulous sum. I think it was $50 for going to a meeting.
Yeah, and I know you put in a lot of work.
And neighborhood board meetings, by the way, don't count.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Right. Okay, so you're still in effect until the final adjudication of this issue.
That's right, and so is the Reapportionment Commission. So I would imagine that the United States Supreme Court finds that they are at fault here, and that the district lines would have to be redrawn for the next subsequent election.
The next election, or the next reapportionment?
The next election.
Next election, which would be next year.
If the decision came down in time for that, then it would be next year. If the decision came down in a subsequent year, it would be for the next election.
That would be interesting, because when all of this was going on, a year and a half ago, there was a lot of concern because people didn't know what district they would run from. People in the areas didn't know. The district I represent, for example, in East Honolulu, for decades had been the 8th senatorial district, but it became the 9th senatorial, because 8 was shifted to Kauai, and you had that extra seat on the island of Hawaii. So we're not done with this yet. That's the main thing, right?
That's right.
Okay.
That is correct. So the main point that people need to understand here, I think, is that there has been an injustice done here to 108,000 of our United States citizens, people who reside in Hawaii, who are part of our ohana, who are part of our community, and I think they deserve to be apportioned to our legislature. That is the way it has always been done in the United States of America. That is what is fair and just.
It's so interesting because we're always taking up causes for civil rights.
Truly.
But not here. Not here. Nobody really, like I said, I mean, there weren't editorial voices that I remember. There weren't community voices that said, wait, this isn't right. Everybody should have the right, at least, of representation. Didn't do that. It was looked at as kind of a different kind of thing.
It seems that some of our fundamental principles of governance are being ignored these days. The Constitution is being cast aside, and these are things that need to be addressed because these are the building blocks of our society.
Mm-hmm.
And if they are ignored, our very existence as a nation, our freedom, our liberty as individuals is in peril.
So is it fair to say you see this Hawaii reapportionment issue as larger than just the reapportionment of people?
Truly.
Yeah, good. Well, look, our guest has been Mike Palcic. I said at the opening, we used to call you Tall Mike, and now we call you, Big Mike, and now we call you Tall Mike. Why? What happened? Inquiring minds want to know.
I've been very fortunate in this life, and when I was diagnosed with liver cancer, I have had in the last 2 years the opportunity to receive transplantation through a Kaiser here and Mainland Hospital, and basically my life has been restored, and I'm very grateful for that, and I let people know that this has happened. And I do definitely have a view about modern medicine, and that is that it works.
Well, the doctors will be happy to hear that. I don't know about Obamacare, however. Well, we're glad that everything worked, and before you did all of this, you and your wife operated the McMouse store, and so many of us who are Mac users, that was our clubhouse. That was our place.
Well, Macs are us. We love our Macintosh computers and our iPods and our iPhones, and the technology.
Everybody's connected.
Great tools.
Which means, look, if you want better government, it's easier than ever before right now. The technology is there, but you've got to demand, that your elected representatives listen to you, because again, don't forget, you're paying for everything. You are the master. I think there's too few people that understand how much power that the voter and the people in this community actually have. They don't exercise it, though, and that's the difference. You can have all the power in the world. If you don't exercise, it's no good. So this is Sam Slom thanking you for joining us, and thanking Mike Palcic for everything he's done, and for giving us more information about reapportionment. And we thank you for tuning in, and help to work for a better day. Aloha.